A question I get asked a lot about our other podcast, Welcome to Night Vale, is what genre is it? And I sometimes say it's weird fiction, or sometimes I say it's a horror comedy, or reverse that and say a comedy horror. Sometimes I get a little pedantic and explain to people that genre is just a capitalist construct. It was meant to divide fiction into gated communities and ghettos. It was meant to keep the right kinds of stories in and the wrong kind out, all in the service, of course, of selling books or movies. And while I do believe that last part pretty strongly, I also understand that genres do exist and that even without subdividing our literature and film for materialistic purposes, we as humans do love our categories. After all, if we sit down to watch a movie called, say, Just One Look, that title doesn't tell us much about what we're about to watch. Maybe I'm interested in something arty and introspective, or something lighthearted and romantic. Maybe I want to be chilled or thrilled, or maybe I could just go in blind and open myself up to liking whatever is offered to me. So genre is significant for these reasons, but it's not really very cut and dry. And after 200 episodes of this podcast, I think about the horror genre in specific quite a lot. Silence of the Lambs has been widely claimed to be the first and only horror film to win Best Picture. And according to the Wikipedia page about the Academy Awards Best Picture, only five other horror movies have ever been nominated. You can go ahead and pause this episode right now if you want to try and guess those five before I tell you. Those other movies were The Exorcist, Jaws, The Sixth Sense, Black Swan, and Get Out. But there are other nominees for Best Picture, I would say, that are being left out of that horror list. A Clockwork Orange, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Deliverance, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Taxi Driver, Fatal Attraction, Schindler's List, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, The Hurt Locker, Precious, A Serious Man, 127 Hours, Amour, 12 Years a Slave, Room, Parasite, Joker, and Nightmare Alley. None of those movies fall directly into line with what we think of as horror, either because of soundtrack, lighting, special effects, or camera movement, but they're all unnerving, scary films, and they deal with the same tropes and archetypes that classic horror films deal with. And yet, I'm still not sure why Silence of the Lambs is a horror film. Is it because of the extremeness of the violence depicted? I mean, if we want to draw lines here, like Silence of the Lambs to me more closely resembles a crime procedural. Like it could have just been CSI Ohio. And here I land on this week's film, Freaks, definitely part of the horror genre based on general cultural agreement. Like a slasher B movie, the shitty people are super shitty and they get what's coming to them in horrible ways. It's grotesque and moody, and like the best horror films, it's campy and subversive. But would I call it a horror film? Like, strictly speaking, maybe not, but I think that judgment will differ from person to person. And I honestly love the stretchiness of the horror label. Like almost everything's a horror movie. Even people who think they don't like horror actually love it because almost everything overlaps the horror genre. You've seen a ton of horror movies in your life, even if you think you haven't seen a one. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
What's the scariest or most unnerving movie that you have experienced that you feel like no one would ever call a horror film?
Oh gosh. Well, I know this is not for me, but I remember taking a friend of mine to go see the Martin Scorsese film, The Gangs of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a horror film to her just
Yeah.
because of the extreme violence in that movie. Like she was like she's a very sensitive soul and she like barely hung on to the end of
Hmm.
that film because of the extreme violence.
Yeah.
So like she was watching it like a horror film rather than the historical drama that I'm sure Martin Scorsese had intended it to be.
Yeah. I find a lot of mafia films to be kind of that way, like
Oh yeah.
the constant threat of violence. Yeah, uh, Donnie Brasco is one of those movies where it
Sure.
is like you have an undercover cop in the mob. Like every second
Yeah.
of that film is really tense because you know what these men are capable of doing to somebody who is going to undermine them. I've said it
Oh yeah.
before. Kramer versus Kramer was one that always got to me as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of tension and terror that comes with just waiting for something to explode.
Yeah, you can't tell me that the body burying scene from Goodfellas is not a horror sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting watching this film. You've seen this movie before, Freaks, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay. This is my first time watching this movie, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. Like, I think the only thing really knew about this movie was one of us, Gooble Gobble,
Sure.
Gooble Gobble. And yeah, it's really interesting because it is kind of a slasher film. Not, there are knives in it.
Oh, yes.
There's knifing that happens in this
Oh,
movie.
yes.
But it's sort of interesting because it's kind of flipped because the movie puts you on the side of the people doing the knifing.
Yeah.
And like an 80s slasher, like a Friday the 13th, 70s, 80s style, what do we call that? A moralistic horror. This is about really shitty bullies
Yeah.
who were gonna get their fucking comeuppance.
Yeah. It does almost feel like more of like a gangland film,
Mm-hmm.
by the end, especially for that very reason. And just because the gang, it just happens to be a gang of circus people, it doesn't matter. They're
Mm-hmm.
still out for justice.
Mm-hmm. And this movie will come up on, obviously like campy film lists and cult
Sure.
classics and things like that. But, I think there's a very strong queer read to this movie, a very, very strong queer read to this movie, about people who find their homes in chosen families
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
and have
Yeah,
to
I think it
protect
was the
themselves.
line, what is it? If you offend, like the very opening sequence when the carnival barker is like, if you offend one of them, you offend them all. And I was like, queer.
Yeah, it really is. It is a moral, it is it's a moral tale about, yeah, don't fuck with the people who are down and out and have banded together to protect
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Well, Todd Browning's Freaks opens with all classic film things. We get Leo the Lion, the MGM Roar, and then we get the paper title card that is just a
Yes.
show card poster that says Freaks and the cast and the whatever, and then a hand tears it open, which I love.
It's so low tech and yet
Uh-huh.
so amazing, especially because, like, once that paper tears away, it cuts to this carnival barker who is essentially torn away a poster. And now we're in the world of the film, which I
Mhm.
kind of love the idea of like tearing back a layer and now we're just inside the film.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it too, because that's what the film is going to do too. That's what our carnival barker is going to set up a
Yeah.
thing, and then the whole movie is essentially a flashback to set up what he's about to show you.
Yeah.
So the carnival barker, is setting up like this breathing monstrosity, but for the accident of birth, you might be as they are. And so it's a freak show at a carnival, whatever, and he walks this group of people over to like a little pen, and they all look down in it. One woman like screams at the sight of whatever they're seeing. We don't see it. And he says, this one below that you see before you, she was once a beautiful woman known as the peacock of the air. Flashback.
Which is kind of funny because do peacocks really fly? Do they fly?
I, I kind of presume they're like chickens, like they can kind of like, or turkeys, they can kind of get a
Yeah.
little air for a few feet.
Yes.
That's a good point. Do peacocks like they sit in trees, right?
Maybe. I always see
Uh,
them on the ground. I
I do
think of them as
too.
ground birds.
Your classic
So,
ground bird.
maybe not the yeah, okay, listen, whatever. It's like she did not really test market that name too hard before. Cleopatra as well. Her name is Cleopatra. So, we're taking this with a grain of salt here.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So we get to our flashback of the beautiful French. Is that her accent?
Sure.
The beautiful blonde woman Cleopatra up on her trapeze. And we also, in the circus, we also meet Hans and Frida, who are little people, played, I believe, by children and voiced over.
Oh,
Is that
I
what's
didn't know
happening?
that.
Or am I
Oh,
wrong
I don't
about
know.
that?
I mean, it seems like those are their voices.
That's so interesting.
I didn't find any of that in my research, but I did find that their quote love affair, their impending marriage is that their romance is played down because they are actually brother and sister in real life.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I thought as well. I was like, oh, look, they're, oh, no, they're in love. Okay. Okay. They look very similar to each other. Like the genetic structure, they're going to have same children.
Oh my God, yeah. Uh, oh yeah, I'm just gonna interrupt this really quickly and say you're right. He's 30 when he does this. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm making presumptions. Grant, you can just cut that first part. Yeah, so we have Hans and Frida that are a German couple. They're little
Hmm.
people,
Yep.
and they are engaged to be married. Or not engaged, but they're together. I don't know if they're actually like set to be married,
I
but
think
they're
they are.
okay.
Like like I actually thought that they were married, but it's
Hmm.
it's kind of made clear that it's, you know, he has proposed, they are together, it's, all is lovey-dovey. It's very great. And also, I must point out their clothes are fucking amazing.
Oh,
Like just the way, like the tailoring on both of their clothing is so top notch. Like
hmm.
the suits that Hans wears, amazing. So good job, costume department.
Well, Hans is watching Cleopatra up on this trapeze, and he's in love with her because she's, beautiful. She's stunning to look at, and he just can't keep his eyes off the newest thing happening at the circus. And he even says about her, he's like, she's the most beautiful large woman I've ever seen. And obviously, like Frida's a little bit like,
She's like,
hey,
oh,
buddy.
hey, hey, soon to be wife over here.
Uh-huh.
But he dials it back. He's like, no, 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 no. I only have eyes for you, my love, which is very sweet, but very false.
But very lie.
Yeah.
And Cleo, comes off of the stage and she's now flirting with Hans, like dropping her cloak and him helping her put it back on her. And and she sort of laughs as he does that. And here's kind of one of the themes throughout. And he says, "Are you laughing at me?"
Yeah.
He says, most big people do, not realizing that I'm a man. And and she's like, "No, no, yeah, it's fine. We're all good. I'm laughing, not laughing at you. I'm laughing near you."
That's right.
And so yeah, so now he's full on after just telling Frida, "No, no, no, we're cool." He's like, "Hey, cool lady, maybe we can have some wine together
Yeah.
in your trailer sometime."
Hey, do you like flowers? Do you like exotic fruits?
In his tuxedo and all of this, so he's, we get a sense of some money here, which we'll find out more
Yes.
about later. So then we cut to like a forest scene just outside of where the circus is. There are a couple of these two men that are sort of walking through, I guess, are just there to kind of set up that the circus is traveling through. These men are just on the land and run
Yeah.
across the uh the freaks, right? Like the
Yeah.
circus oddities,
Yeah.
um, who are being kept by a woman named Madame Tetralini.
Oh, love Madame Tetralini.
So good. There's um we see like a armless, legless man by the creek. We see little people and folks in dresses dancing about. It just looks like people having fun is what's happening.
Yeah, they're having a goddamn day in the park.
Yeah, it is
They are
exactly.
dancing in a circle. They are having a picnic.
Uh-huh.
Life is good.
And this whole setup with these two men walking through, because one of them is like, "I saw some crazy horrors in the forest," and the other guy's like, "You
Yeah.
drink too much."
Yes.
and and then they run across whatever the crazy horrors in the forest are, and it's just like delightful people having a nice time.
Yeah. Like literally, like playing a flute and just dancing in a circle. That's
Yeah.
it. By the riverbank.
And to their credit, Monsieur Duval, I think is this man's name, but he tells Madame Tetralini, he's like, "Oh, so like these are you're with these people?" And she's like, "Yes, these are she calls them her children. We're in a circus." And he's like, "All right." Cool.
Oh
You're
yeah. I
welcome
was
to
like,
be
oh
here.
yeah, great. Yeah, I've heard the circus is in town. That must be you. So come on, drunkie, get out of here.
Yeah.
And the drunk guy is incensed. He is so mad
Uh-huh.
that these people even exist and should be, within eye shot of him.
Yeah.
Which again, if you want to go back to this queer read of, you know, normies being like, I'm okay with gay people as long as they're just not gay in front of me.
Right.
I'm okay with people that are different as long as I don't have to engage with them, see them, hear them, or acknowledge them as people.
Yeah. I I think this movie's so interesting because this movie is exploitative in many ways, but for ableist reasons. I think it's really interesting the way it models good and bad behavior very clearly.
Yeah.
And these two men, the Monsieur Duval, is the man who's like, it's fine. Like we have
Yeah.
a full explanation for what's happening here.
Yeah.
It's unusual to me to see this activity, people who look like this, et cetera, et cetera. Now that I understand, awesome. Do your
Yeah.
thing. And that's
Yes.
like such good behavior to model if you're a normie.
Yeah.
And this movie is, made for normies.
Yeah.
It's very similar to my thought on Magic Mike XXL, which is a movie made for men, for straight men, because it models good male behavior toward each
Yeah. Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, we get back to the circus, and now we're building upon, we have this drunk man in the woods being incensed at the freaks that he sees. And we get back to the circus now, and we do see some of the men in the circus, like the able-bodied men who are angry at the freaks being present at all. Like
Yeah.
they're making fun of them, they're sneering at them. We meet Josephine,
Yeah.
who is half man, half woman. And we get some joking about the confusion over are you man or are you woman?
Oh my gosh, my brain can't. I exist on a binary and I can't even understand what happens when that binary is broken. Like she likes you, but he doesn't.
I love Josephine is amazing. I love this
Right?
character so much. I love this as just a visual to depict how people, when we talk about a gender binary, like Josephine, like directly demonstrates a binary.
Yeah.
Josephine is down the middle, symmetrically, vertically, symmetrically, man on one side, woman on the other in, visual depiction. And just seeing the binary freaks out the cisgendered people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really funny to me. Like, oh, this is the simplest thing for you to get,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
half and half.
And I also love that it's like a ball gown on one side
Mm-hmm.
and then a like leopard print, like strongman
Mm-hmm.
Tarzan leotard on the other. Like one would think ball gown tuxedo, but no, no, no. We
No.
have gone in a different direction. So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that point, and maybe minus a point from the costume department there.
I clocked this too, and my question was this a budget decision? Is it much harder to make, more expensive to make
Oh,
a ball
probably.
gown tuxedo combo?
Yeah.
Um,
But
anyways.
it is important to note that Josephine and Joseph, it like they give these two men like pays them no fucking mind. Like throughout the rest of the film, actually Josephine Joseph is the arch eyebrow, like, fuck this. I have no time for this. And I think that's like why, especially in these introduction scenes, we're kind of getting the circus life, like what the daily life is like. We understand that there's kind of like assholes in the circus, and there's people that are just like normal, except they're like, hey Joe, hey, what do you know, just
Uh-huh.
doing my laundry over here, what's up, um but I think the way Josephine Joseph handles this is pretty telling in that it's like they really don't engage. They kind of give, Hercules the strong man sort of a lingering look, to which the two men are like, oh, I think they're sweet on you.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't like you, but she does. Oh no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Josephine Joseph does not engage. Like it's not it like again, it's I think the default of these oddities, these human oddities in this circus setting is we're just trying to live our fucking lives and do our jobs.
yeah, that's basically it. And I love I love JJ's complete blank stare that they
Yeah.
give anyone and everyone in this movie. Okay, so now we're gonna meet Venus, and Venus is another. I got confused with Venus for a second because I thought this was
We've got two, Hollywood and Vine blondes, kind
yes,
of Jean Harlow blondes here. Is Jean Harlow blonde? I think so.
sure,
Yeah, like two 1930s Hollywood blondes. And it did take me a second. The accent was, I was like, okay, you're younger. Venus is a little bit younger, a little bit greener, a
very
little bit more like
American.
flapper. Yeah, American flapper is
Yeah,
kind of the vibe there.
yeah. And Venus is getting frustrated. She's arguing with her boyfriend, breaking up with him, threatening to quit the circus altogether. Um, and he's shouting at her like, "Oh, well, fine. I'm through wasting my time and money on things like you," as he says to her, "Things
Yeah.
like you."
Yes. And she retorts, well, you tempted me into this life saying, I'm going to make you a star, baby. And so far, I am literally just washing your tights in
Yep.
this caravan right now.
Yeah. And
So I
also,
refuse to be your possession
mhm.
anymore.
And also, you've wasted my money, not yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as she's storming off, she runs across a clown. It's a great scene of like she stops and just berates a clown on the circus grounds.
Yes. What you looking at, clown?
Yeah, and the clown does not. The clown just looks at her like in clown makeup,
Yeah.
and he is slowly taking off his nose and his wig and removing his makeup. And the whole time he's in costume. This is so Brechtian, right? Like when you're
Yeah.
in costume, you are in the costume is your character, the mask is your character, and he does not react to her at all. Like he's in full clown mime mode
Yeah.
until he gets all of his makeup off and she's already left, and then he tracks her down and is like, "Say, this is Froso you're talking to. Who are
Yeah.
you, dame?"
Comedy,
Comedy.
human comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, wait a minute. I think that dame was mean to me. I got to go give her a piece of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It also appears that she is moving into his trailer.
Yeah. I was confused by this because she never really actually quits the circus. She just moves into Froso's
Yeah.
cabin. Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. What's going on
Mm-hmm.
there?
So she tells him, sorry, I needed to take it out on someone. That's all. I just am going through this shit. That guy's a turd, and he says, well, it's good you finally got wise about that guy. And say, now that I'm looking at you, you're pretty pretty.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, I had there's a weird line in here. I can't tell if this was just like a quirky. There's a few jokes in this movie that it didn't entirely get.
Sure.
And there's this one where, they kind of have a making up scene. She's like, "I'm sorry I yelled at you. This is what I'm going through." And he's like, "Hey, they're meet cute, right?" And she
Yeah.
finally says, "Hey, you know what? You're a pretty good guy. You're a pretty good kid," is what she says to him. And Froso says, "You should have caught me before my operation." What
What?
does that mean? There's almost like a Groucho Marx type of wink to her
Yeah.
when he says that, and I miss this entirely.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. There is a sense that Froso has this like he's the clown artist. The artistry of clowning is
Hmm.
his passion and almost what makes him a freak. Like because he is so single-minded on like he's so into coming up with new clowning acts. He is so single-minded that he almost can't exist in the real world and therefore he fits in the circus world.
Hmm.
And I think that's what gives him his compassion to the other people around him. He's like, I don't know, they're doing their job. They live their job. I'm living my job. This is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. All right, so let's meet some of the other people. There's so many great characters in here. Just it's a circus. Daisy and Violet are the conjoined twins.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. Daisy is married to Roscoe, who is the stuttering circus clown,
Yes.
Roscoe witnesses Froso flirting with Violet and Daisy, just being cute. Like
But
he's
he's
not even
even
like coming on
flirting.
to
He's just like talking to them.
he like does a little trick of like close your eyes and pinches Violet's shoulder and Daisy can feel it, right?
Yeah.
Even though Daisy isn't looking. And of course, Roscoe is just overly protective, and this is like played for comedy, right? The idea
Yeah.
that you would be married to a conjoined twin, and then you would have like, well, your sister can do whatever she wants. I'm not married to her. I don't give a shit who
Mm,
she fucks.
but you are.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to Cleopatra, and she meets Hercules, the strong man.
Oh, yeah.
Love these pre-code movies, and
Oh,
they're
my gosh. They could
it's
do anything, they could say anything.
she brings him in for wine and eggs.
Oh, my God. How do you like these?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she says she's like she asks him if he wants some eggs, and he was like, well, I'm not very hungry, so how about just 6
Oh,
eggs?
ha ha
She's
ha
like,
ha.
how many
Because
you want?
he's the strong man. Ha ha ha. He's so
And then
big and tall.
she turns to say and says, how do you like them? Meaning, how do you like your eggs? But she also, like, her robe comes open, revealing like the negligee below, basically showing off her tits. And she says, how do you like them? And he goes,
Yes.
not bad.
Oh, yeah. You know, I gotta say, the first time I watched this movie, this was one of those movies that I think opened up pre-code films, black and like that told that this was one of the first times that I saw a black and white film that I was surprised at how sophisticated and quote modern it felt, because it wasn't, it didn't have the Catholic Church sort of standing over you, be like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, said no, 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 rap you on the knuckles if I see, 2 people making out and one foot isn't on the floor, leave some
Yeah.
room for the Holy Ghost. And I was really surprised throughout this film. I remember distinctly watching this film, and it was the wit, that kind of what we're talking about, these sort of double entendres that were so great. It
Mm-hmm.
was also the compassion that this film had for its characters, and also how scary the ending sequence is. I was like, oh my God, this movie is doing it
Yeah.
better than most films that have been made in the 100 years since this has been made.
Absolutely. So during this moment where they're making out, we see Josephine Joseph just in the doorway, just staring at them with that blank look of like, what is this straight bullshit?
Yeah, right?
And Hercules chases them out, chases them down, and punches their lights out. I
Yeah,
say chases, but what's it really interesting is he doesn't chase them at all. Like he just steps out. Josephine just stares right at him,
yeah.
and he just punches them out. And I mean, I hate that scene, but I also love that Josephine Joseph is just like, all right, you about to punch me? I've had it before. Go
Yeah.
ahead and do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to this idea of like, I just don't want, I'm not like opposed to gay things. Just, don't be gay near me.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't
Mm-hmm.
be queer near me.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleopatra finds this hilarious.
Oh my God. Woof.
I love, here's the thing. I love hate Cleopatra.
Yes.
She is like Disney villain level
Cruella de Vil.
Ursula, like
Yes.
she like so deliciously evil is the only way to describe her.
Totally. Yeah, deliciously evil is perfect. So get back into Hans and his love for Cleo.
Oh dear.
He
Oh,
like
poor
there's a scene
Hans.
earlier where she's like, "Oh darling, can I have another loan of 1,000 francs because until my money comes from Europe?" And he's like, "Sure thing, lady." He's like,
Anything you want.
He's sending her candies and flowers and all of this sorts of stuff. And she is very much playing along with all of this because she finds it hilarious. That's really the
Yeah.
only reason. The whole thing is wouldn't it be funny if I strung along this freak? Is
I think she
basically,
finds it hilarious and also opportunistic. Like
yeah,
there's a depression on,
yeah.
like
I'll take
if I
free
could,
things.
yeah, if I can wrap this guy around my finger to get free stuff,
Yeah,
great.
totally. So she's benefiting in this way. And we see the strain on his relationship with Frida, and there's this really lovely scene where Frida is talking to Hans and is like, "Hey, last night, I don't think you should have a cigar before we do the show. Last night, your voice was so raspy when you sang." And he's just getting pissed off at her.
Yeah.
Like he's not listening. He's
Don't you
thinking,
nag me.
yeah. She's like, "You've never talked to me. This is the first time in our relationship you've ever
Yeah.
snapped at me like this." And Frida starts talking to Venus
Mhm.
about Cleopatra, about like, she's always showing off in front of me, like touching Hans,
Yeah.
laughing at his jokes, flirting with him in front of me. She's going out of her way to show me up.
Well, and even more so, she's thanking him for the expensive gifts
Hmm.
in front of her,
Yeah.
which is such a power move of like, oh, your man gave me this.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Do you have one of these? No, you don't. Your
Yeah.
man gave me one of these. Rude.
Yeah.
Hella rude.
Yeah. Again, like when we talk about modeling, I think this is so interesting. Like if you're gonna play at moral storytelling,
Sure.
I think modeling is like just as important as the moral in the end. Like it's just as you want to show Cruella de Vil, you want to show Cleopatra here as what not to be, but you
Yeah.
also have to show what to be. And
Yeah.
Frida is modeling a behavior that says, I'm not I mean, obviously, I feel jealousy
Yeah.
because I love him and I want him in my life. And if he's going to flirt with another woman, I want to stop that. But there's only so much in my power.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the other feeling I feel for this person, because I love them, I care for them, or I
Yeah.
care for them because I love them. And she's concerned he's being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think that's really nice because so many love stories are about possession,
Right.
about you're mine, don't
I
look at
want
this
my
other
man
man.
back.
Yeah.
I mean, and also talk about the modeling of Venus, who is kind of, our introduction to her is a bit rocky,
Mhm.
but we see her modeling allyship, just being like, hey, girl, you look a little down. What's
Mhm.
going on? Like, you're normally so bright and cheerful. As she's like, they're like literally hanging out her bloomers, just
Mhm.
living their everyday lives.
Mhm.
And Venus is like, what's going on with you? Which is such, like, to this day is what allyship is. It's just like, hey, like something's off with you. What's going on?
Mhm.
Can I help? is
Mhm.
is one of the greatest strides any human being can make to another person. And I
Yeah.
think that's modeling that behavior of recognizing each other.
Yeah. So, uh, we've got a few more scenes of like the boy Hercules and the boys kind of laughing about Hans, and Cleopatra does a thing where she's like, "Oh, my shoulder, can you give me a back rub?"
And
to
she's like giving
Hans.
them a wink. and
Ugh.
and and I think this is the like this is where, especially with our sort of more modern eyes, this is where this idea of, it's one thing to have machinations to get money off of somebody. That's pretty, pretty transparent. It's another thing to be in a tight-knit community and like essentially bully them by making them a joke behind their back.
Mhm.
And I think, I like it's same. It's like 100 years ago, and that shit still hurts.
Yeah. So let's talk about this relationship between Froso and Venus. So here we have our two our our cis couple, like
Yep.
our big people couple, um, circus allies, basically. And they're getting together. Their relationship is very 1932.
Yeah.
It took me a while to warm up to Froso, and I don't. I think some of that is just it's been 92 years since this
It's been
movie was
it's been,
made.
you know, a bit of feminism was invented, or second
Yes.
wave feminism has come through in that time.
But also kind of that era, like you don't get a sense that Venus is overwhelmed by him. She's annoyed by
No.
him, but it's
Yeah.
playing this classic Hollywood male female coupling wherein they're both kind of fast talking wisecrackers,
Yeah.
and so they
Yeah. Yeah.
both
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
each other shit constantly.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be how people fall in love, is because they tear each other down constantly.
Yes.
Oh, but if we just suspend our disbelief and say, okay, these two are meet cuting. Froso's thing is that, as you said earlier, like he's the artiste, right? He's always working on his craft, which
Yeah.
respect. But she's trying to have conversations with him, and he's like, "Oh, look at my new trick. Here, hit me on the head with this mallet. I'll show you this funny gag." And she's like, "Can we just have a normal conversation?"
Yeah. Listen, he's got an idea and he's following it. Okay. He wants to try out his new gag, and it's
But
not a bad one.
no, it's actually
It's
pretty good. Yeah.
and it's also like, I mean, this idea, like, that you get this feeling with Froso that there's a bit of the I could have been great, I could have been a contender
Hmm.
clown. you know like, something happened in his life where he thought he was going to be performing in, I think he even says, he's like, when he's talking to some of the others, he's like, "So, when my ship comes in, when I'm performing for heads of state, I had a dream that I was there with Venus, and I look great and we look great. We went to the opera and we had all this money." There's that sense of dreaming for him, of a
Hmm.
better life, of the successful life, but still as a clown.
Yeah.
Hey, aren't you Froso the clown?
I I always think back to, I think it was my friend Cohen way back when on Twitter that had said uh that one of the worst insults you could say about somebody is, "Who is this clown?" Because one, it suggests that person's a clown, and two, even worse, that they're a clown that is not even famous enough to be known.
Oh
Oh
no.
no. So, I going to Froso here, like Froso has there's some like I don't know. There's some little things about Froso that you're like, I don't know if this relationship's going to work out, but it doesn't seem like, I mean, he seems like a very good person at heart, because
Yeah.
the thing about Froso, like Monsieur Duval earlier in the film, Froso's an ally. Like Froso
Yeah.
sees everyone as people, and he finds ways to connect to them.
Yeah.
Like when he sees the uh I don't remember their names, like
Yeah.
Schlitzy,
Schlitzie. Yeah.
yeah. When he
And
when he sees
Daisy, I
and
think. No, or no,
yeah,
no, not Daisy. Not Daisy.
it was have this or I don't. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when anyone he talks to, um that he finds a way to connect to all of them. Like he
Yeah.
finds a way to make people feel good, which is kind of one of the preeminent clown jobs that you
Sure.
do, is to make people feel happy. And he treats people with a profound level of respect. That he lets people know, you belong here and I see you.
Yeah.
And those are really great human traits to have. And so again, with the modeling of that, so Schlitzie, Elvira, and Jenny Lee, those are
There
their
you go.
names. But he also like, and what happens in this moment when he and Venus are talking is they get word uh from one of the other circus people, like the bearded woman just had her baby. And it's sweet. Like, again,
Yeah.
a community thing. We all gather around. Our
Yeah.
friend just had a baby. Let's go see her. Yeah.
And they're so excited because it's a girl and it's going to have a beard.
Yeah.
Like, that is something to be celebrated.
Of course. Yeah. Um, we also meet the Angelino, who's one of the freaks, kind of we see him a lot more as this movie goes on. And I think his partner, who is the armless woman, and they're talking, and the armless woman is, I don't think we get her name, but she's telling Angelino, yeah, I don't trust that Cleo woman.
Yeah. So already whispers, rumors are going around. They're like, we kind of see what's happening over here. Like, nothing egregious, just like, just a little bit of ick, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Um, but you know, when it comes down to it, what's really interesting is, you know, when we get to the point wherein Hans and Cleo get married, it is very interesting because they're like, well, fine, you're one of us.
Yeah,
We accept you
that's it.
because he accepted you.
Yeah,
You know, you're welcome into the family, which is again such a positive thing to say, you know.
yeah,
Like you bring the person you're dating home and you love this person, you hope that your family will say, well, because Cecil loves this person, we
yeah.
love this person
We
too.
accept you,
Yeah.
which I think is started in that Madame Tetralini scene in the idea of it's not just a job. It's not like this is family, like family bonds. In
Hmm.
that Madame Tetralini, clearly these are not her biological children, but she takes care of them as her children, which I think is also important to note that to kind of counteract the idea of the sort of elephant man narrative of we have found somebody different than the norm and we are going to just purely make money off of them and keep them in a cage and strip away their humanity.
Hmm.
This idea of like embracing them as your own
Hmm.
is so important in this movie. And I think that's why this movie really gels and why it does earn the ending, the absurd bananas ending that it
Yeah.
gets,
Yeah.
because we're like, yeah, it's a bit like a mafia film. It's like, oh, you fuck with my brother, you fuck with me.
Yeah. That's absolutely it. And yeah, and also because where Cleopatra is going to end up, as in the beginning, is in a pen isolated by herself, as
Yeah.
opposed to the freedom that these freaks
Yeah.
have because they are a family, they are together. United we stand.
That's it. Or lay.
Yeah, that's right. Just complete the Daisy and Violet conjoined twins story because now Violet has uh she has a wooer, a man who's come to ask for her hand in
Yeah.
marriage. And which I love this moment because you know, Daisy is facing away from them as he is kneeling before Violet, and then she says yes. They kiss, and we see Daisy's face kind of light up
I
because she
know.
can feel the kiss of her sister. And then this is when Roscoe comes in, and Daisy says, "Oh, I want you to meet Violet's fiance," and he's like, "Oh, you should come over and see us sometime." And he's like, "Yeah, you should come over and see us sometime."
Are they in a polycule?
Well, just physically,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna have to edge that way a little bit. Roscoe's
But it's
gonna
the
have to loosen up his control, is what I'm
right, yes,
saying.
he will. But it has that feeling of, look, love can happen just because you don't like I possess you and you're my wife and you do what I say, which is Roscoe's kind of MO,
Hmm.
and inevitably, you know, uh, Violet, I think, is like, I gotta get out of here. I got shit to do.
Uh-huh.
But now they're gonna make it work. And that's
Yeah,
kind of like that's I think the last bit of their storyline, but it kind of ends on their subplot kind of ends with this sense of 3 days at my house, 3 days at your house. We'll
yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, and you know, I think the predominant theme, if we talk about themes in this movie, is family. It is
Yeah.
about what it means to be a family, what it means to have to band together, what it means to like stick together, to be part of a community.
Yeah.
You don't get to be as individualistic, but you get to be special. You're all
Mhm.
freaks. We are
Yeah.
all, each of us, really unique and weird. And that's
Yeah.
sort of beautiful because we have the homogeny of family, not the homogeny of whatever your body looks like or skin color or whatever. So Frida confronts Hans about Cleo, and this is where she spells out, like, it's not jealousy, dude. Like, I'm not,
Yeah.
it's she is laughing at
She's
you.
using you.
Yeah. And she's like, I forgive you for not wanting to marry me. I just want you to be happy. Just know I love you.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And he can't hear it.
And unfortunately, Frida makes a bit of a tactical error.
Boy, is this a tactical error.
Oof. Well, I mean, it makes sense. She kind of goes to Cleopatra. She's like, okay, woman to woman, I'm not here to tell you to keep your paws off my man or anything, but just know this sucks.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, and she kind of spills the beans. She's like, "Oh, Hans actually is set up to inherit a fortune."
Mm-hmm.
No, and he promised me never to tell anybody until we were done with the circus. And you can literally see Cleopatra. Like, this is some amazing post-silent film acting here. Like, it's all about the eyes. Like, you can see her counting the dollar signs in her eyes.
Yeah, she
A
you know,
fortune, you say?
uh-huh. Oh, maybe I will marry the dwarf. She keeps doing a P instead of an F sound.
Does she? Ew.
Yeah, she because there's a moment where Frida corrects her and she's like, it's dwarf. And she's like,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
and she goes, oh, dwarf. And she keeps and I couldn't tell if that's making fun of the German accent or why she was
Right.
doing that.
Because there is a bit of that. There's also that sense of like these two are German
Mm-hmm.
and, you know,
Yeah.
1930, there's some sticky, Europe, US dynamics are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so she's definitely cackling with laughter, like not metaphorically, and but
No, actual cackle.
actual cackle. And she's pretty transparent about the fact of like, oh yeah, just try to stop me, woman,
Yeah.
to Frida.
Now I can't remember, is Hercules is privy to this conversation. He's hiding in the back,
Yes,
which is again just like a pretty shitty thing to do.
totally, totally. But when Frida leaves, this is where um Cleo and Hercules are like, wait a minute,
There's a fortune.
fortune, you say?
And we
And
know it must be true because like one of the gifts that he gave her was like a platinum necklace.
yeah,
Like, this is not fakey nice. This is not paste,
yeah,
fake jewelry.
he's more than once just given her 1,000 francs.
Yeah.
Don't know what that's worth, but it
I
sounds
don't
like a lot.
70 cents,
Sure.
$3. I don't know. But that was
The
back when $3 could buy you a house in Burbank.
totally. And also that like the wine he's been giving her, he has
Yeah.
sent away to France to have sent
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's like, maybe I will marry him. And these people aren't very strong. A lot
These
can go wrong health-wise
Uh-oh.
for the dwarfs or whatever she
They
says.
get
And
sick all the time.
okay, scientist,
Yeah.
Dr. Cleo.
Dr. Cleo. Peacock of the medicine.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Peacock medicine woman.
Dr. Evil Doctor.
Dr. Evil Doctor. I mean, Cleopatra's not her only problem. Her downfall is that she has zero patience. On the wedding night, Cleo,
Yeah.
on the wedding night.
Yeah, that is
You
the
did
very next scene is wedding feast.
the
She is
wedding feast.
pouring, yeah, but on the wedding night, she's
Yeah.
pouring the poison right into his goblet.
Like, you really? You could wait like a week, a month? No. So transparent.
Yeah, she's so evil. She has not bothered to just even keep up the facade
Yeah. Yeah.
because she wants to see how much she can get away with
Yeah.
constantly. So she's pretty blatant about poisoning his bottle of champagne, pouring it into his glass. We've got this beautiful wedding sequence where we've got the character Canary dancing on the table. We've got the sword swallower, the fire eater. Like everyone's having a grand fucking
I
time.
love it. It's like they're performing for each other,
Yeah.
which is such like a joyful thing. It also feels like just a tiny bit exploitative of like, hey, what's your act? All right, you're a fire eater. You're going to do this in this one scene. We're not going to give you a name, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But everybody is definitely enjoying the fuck out of themselves. Like, it's a night off. Everybody's
Yeah.
getting a little crazy.
Yeah. But she cannot stop herself from evil cackling, be like,
No.
wedding night. Oh, what a
Well, and she's also like straight up making out with Hercules.
yeah, in front of Hans.
Yeah.
And then she turns and sees Hans's fallen face, and she's like, "Oh, my husband is jealous."
And
And
of
it's
course,
Mm.
No, good. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's only Madame Tetralini and Frida who
Yes.
see this happening. No one
Yeah.
else sees this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they storm out. Like, they're like, we got to get out of here. I cannot watch Hans
Yeah.
collapse. Now we get to the acceptance ceremony.
The loving cup.
The loving cup, led by Angelino with the giant goblet, going around the table, getting it, he fills it up, and it's basically being passed around the table for everyone to sip from the
Everyone
goblet.
takes a drink.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family.
We accept her, one of us. Google gobble, Google gobble. And Cleo doesn't really clock what's happening until Hercules is like, oh my God, they're going to make you one of the
Yeah.
freaks. And
Yeah.
that pisses her off.
Like, she gets a full-on star treatment, like full close-up of just shock and horror and dismay at what she has actually done
Yeah.
into marrying into this quote family.
Yeah. She does not look happy about this at all.
No.
She cannot accept this. Like, the last thing she wants to be is a nerd. She doesn't want to be a geek, a freak, any of this.
No, she is beautiful and gorgeous. She flies in the air. She is above reproach. She is named Cleopatra, for God's sake.
Yeah. Who famously was an incredible human being and
Yes.
lived forever.
Yes.
So when Angelino approaches her with the goblet, she's like, she calls him dirty, slimy freaks. You get that shit away from me, and then just splashes the wine in his face. And says,
I love this. This is so interesting because you don't see her do it. You don't watch her throw it. You just watch the table with everybody assembled, and like somebody throws liquid at, I think it's
Angelino.
At Angelino. And just it's totally eliciting an emotional response from the audience, because we're not watching somebody enact the violence. We're watching somebody having violence enacted upon them.
And we see their reaction, their shock. Because you accept people for who you think they're supposed to be. Like, I think being credulous is a pretty important thing. Like, there's a fine line between credulousness and gullibility.
Yeah.
Being taken advantage of. You can take advantage of a credulous person, like a person who's like, I see things at face value. I'm not going to go into everything cynically.
Yeah.
And they have dropped their cynicism to allow space for this woman. And she has thrown it. You have to, it's a form of vulnerability, credulousness is. Accepting somebody is very vulnerable, and they allowed themselves to be vulnerable. And by seeing that got taken advantage of,
yeah,
they're fucking made.
Yeah.
Real
and
made.
She Cleopatra ushers them all out of the tent. She and Hercules, she gives Hans is now he's pretty much been slipped to Mickey.
Yeah.
And she's riding him on her shoulders like pony rides.
This is the most painful scene to me in this movie. Yeah. Because the first thing we hear from Herc when he speaks to Cleopatra is, people think I'm a child. I'm a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
People treat me like a child. So in this moment of ultimate vulnerability, where he has been shat upon on his wedding night,
yeah,
his own wife is like, oh, she says, must mommy take you on a horsey back ride?
Yeah, exactly.
And Hercules puts him on her back, and she horsey rides him around the tent. Painful.
Oof.
I had a friend that worked at a radio station in Dallas back in the 90s, interned at a radio station, and had told me about Vern Troyer, who's I think has since passed. He played Mini-Me in the Austin Powers movies, but he had gone to he had a writer when he was brought in for interviews of do not touch Vern Troyer, do not help him into his seat, do not help him into the thing, but because he's a little person. And so if you're not a little person and you see a little person kind of lift themselves up, climb up on a chair,
yeah,
your tendency is to treat them like a child because you think, oh, this non-adult human needs
Yeah.
help. And it's the indignity of having people do that to you, and that's what this scene depicts. So when we say like what is horror, like this is an uncommon horror scene. It's like the stripping away of dignity.
Yeah.
So now they kind of go through the theater of apology of I think
Listen, I was
Hercules.
so drunk. I don't remember. I said some stuff. He said some stuff. We didn't really mean it.
Uh-huh.
It was the wine talking.
Yeah. She says, I'd rather fall from the trapeze and break my neck than hurt your feelings. Which part of me was like, oh, did we just get, are we says a foreshadowing? No,
I
it is
know.
not, but.
Well, I know. I thought the same. I was like, you have a dangerous job.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dangerous situation. Like, the circus is a dangerous place. You are
Yeah.
doing literally death-defying acts. And, sure, there's a lot of safety checks in place to make sure, but it's one, the 1930s, and two, you know, ropes slip all the time.
Yeah. I would imagine you are pissing off more than the performers. You might be pissing off the stagehands as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, and he's very upset. He was like, you made our wedding a joke,
Yeah.
and but he's so sick he can't go on and he collapses. Next scene, the doctor is there and he's like, well, he was definitely poisoned. I 100% as Dr.
Right?
Real Doctor can tell you that this man was poisoned. And Cleo was like, oh no, so I shouldn't have given him that mustard water. And he's like, oh no. Oh, actually, that was great. The mustard water counteracted the ptomaine or whatever the name of the
Yeah.
poison was. So you actually saved his life. Alibi.
Yep, there you go. You're like, oh no, he was poisoned, but I did the right thing. Yes, no, I
Mm-hmm.
helped save. Because she even says at one point, Hercules is like, oh, you're not giving him, and she's like, no, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. The
How,
Venus and the
however,
yeah.
yeah.
I was just
However, I think at the doctor's bedside, I can't remember who is sort of everybody is watching Cleopatra, and they see
mm-hmm.
what's going on.
They know.
Yeah.
They know now. She's told them who she is through her
Mhm.
actions.
Yeah.
And so, we've got Venus confronts Hercules about the poison. Be like,
Yeah.
people see you and the it might take a call to the cops. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, you've got some pretty wild ideas. And she's like, well, he's like, you've got quite an imagination on you to develop this story. And she says, well, I've been told cops don't have much imagination, so I
That's
think you're
right.
going to be pretty fucked. Um,
But at least
so
she's giving him the option. She's like, you go to the cops or I will.
yeah,
Don't make me go and rat you out.
yeah. And he grabs her. You think he's about to do to her what he did to Josephine Joseph from earlier. But when he grabs her, he looks over and he sees the lineup of all the freaks just glaring at him.
Yeah. You are being observed.
Mm-hmm.
Menace. This is where I think the horror
Totally.
part of this movie kicks in. The idea of, it's very much I think of the scene in The Wicker Man, in which, dude is trying to like get his boat plane started, and there's just like a line of people in masks just like watching him. Just being
Uh-huh.
like, no, that's not gonna work. You're fucked. But it's that same thing. The idea of being observed with malice is fucking terrifying to people. And it's such a potent horror movie ingredient.
Yeah. This movie is very, very Wicker Man in that
Yeah.
sense, and that I found myself on the side of the cult
Yeah.
conspiracy
Yeah.
side of things, 100%. So now we cut back to Hans in his hospital bed, and he is apologizing to Cleo for his outburst at her the other day. She's obviously, in the past week, really shown him a lot of love and care by taking care of him. And we realize very quickly this is all an act. He
Yeah.
is playing right along. We see her take a little black bottle out of her apron and put it in his medicine and feed it to him. And when she's not looking, he spits it out.
Mm-hmm.
And when she leaves, she's like, well, I will be back later. I'm going to the market and having dinner with an old friend of mine. Like,
Yes.
I'm going to go fuck Hercules,
Yeah, pretty
basically.
much.
And Angelino is watching all of this, and he comes in, and Hans says, tonight.
We're doing it tonight.
Yeah, my trailer. And Angelino says they will be ready.
Oh my God.
Oh, this is so good. The dark and stormy night.
Yes.
The caravan is now traveling to the next circus stop
Yep.
on this, horse-drawn carriages through
Muddy
muddy.
roads.
Yeah.
And it looks just like it's that moment you realize just the sort of the everyday danger
Uh-huh.
of this existence.
Yeah.
And just how, I don't know, people disappear, how easy it would be. We see carriages escaping, horses being shocked by lightning. Just the normal pretense of everyday life is dangerous.
Yeah.
But then you add a couple murder plots in there.
And we've got we've got the freaks like gathering beneath the trailer, getting, which is underneath Hans's trailer, knowing that, Cleo is going to be coming back that night.
Yep.
There's one of these guys. I don't know that we ever learn his name, but he's the armless, legless man. There's a scene where he like lights his own cigarette.
Yeah.
He opens a matchbox with his tongue, pulls the match out, strikes it, lights it, bends it back to the cigarette, and it's amazing. It's an incredible sequence where he does this. And we see him like basically like a soldier wading through with a knife in his mouth, wading through the muddy water. He's like, let's go, bitch.
We even see Schlitzie, like sweet, innocent. Do you like my dress? I got a new frock. Schlitzie has got like a fucking Bowie knife. That was perhaps maybe a little much, but because Schlitzie, you can tell the actor is like, I'm being mean, but you're like, you don't really believe it as much.
So good.
But it is that thing of like they are converging. For me, it was you've got a couple people, playing the flute to cheer Hans up in Hans's thing, and Cleopatra's like, shoo, get out of here. Your friends need to go. It's time for bed. And they just take out a knife and a gun and just begin polishing it menacingly.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we in M? Are we in Fritz Lang's M?
Yeah, it's totally that. Because he sits up and she tries to give him his medicine, and Hans says, no, actually, show me that little black bottle that you just took out of your apron. And she's like, what? But what bottle? Switchblade, Luger. She's like, and Hans goes, bottle. Yeah. She's like, here you go.
Oh.
Frida earlier had told Froso about her attacking Venus, because she confronted him about the poison. So Froso's like, oh shit, I gotta go do something about this. So Herc is breaking into Venus's trailer to kill her.
As in like he is breaking down the door,
kicking that shit in.
This is really scary as well, this sequence.
Yeah, he kicks in. It's like dark and stormy night. Like everything's like raining and lightning, and everything is moving because we're in a moving caravan. He busts in, and it is Froso who grabs him just in time, and Froso starts getting his ass kicked to help save Venus.
Yeah.
And during all of this, the fucking caravan crashes. Like everything just tips over. Cleo runs away. Herc is choking out Froso the clown.
Yep.
But then we see the approaching knife-bearing freaks.
Yeah.
surround him. And
they like throw a knife, it hits him in the side.
Uh-huh.
He is not expecting that, but that's like the advantage Froso needs. Clocks him.
Uh-huh. And then the others, all we see happen to Herc is everybody surrounds him.
Yes.
And then done. Quick note, according to Wikipedia, this was not on the version I saw online on Tubi or whatever I watched this movie on, But in the original version of the film, we get a reveal that after the freaks had caught Hercules, they turned him into a castrato singer.
Yes.
That was not
And
depicted in this version.
apparently that ending was only ever shown once.
Ah,
Like
okay.
literally only ever appeared once. And then the studios were like, oh, we need to give this thing a happier ending. And they sort of they cut that scene, and then they contrived the very last scene, the sort of Hans Frida reconciliation.
It is interesting how that's too far that like something that has happened in the history of humankind where we
Yeah.
have made castrati,
Yeah.
um that we've had genital mutilation for years and years and years in this world, that was suddenly the studios are like, we cannot depict a man being genitally mutilated, but we can show a woman who has been converted into a duck.
Who's
She has
been
been
tarred and feathered.
and carved into a
Yeah.
tiny little whatever.
Yeah.
So the mutilation of this woman is fine. The mutilation of the man, less fine.
Yes.
But we also see Cleo running through the woods and a band of the freaks approaching her, and then cut to our beginning Carnival Barker standing over the pen.
Observe. Look on this and
No one
repent.
knows. Yes, and no one knows how she got this way. Some say it was a jealous lover. Others say it was the code of the freaks. I'm in that camp. I think
Yeah.
it was the freaks what did it.
I think so. And this is so shocking. It takes a minute to really register what you're looking at. But yes, they turned her into a duck. They turned
Yeah.
her into a chicken,
Yeah,
which is a bit of a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, she got tarred and feathered,
I think her
legs
legs and
removed, arms
cut off.
removed,
Mm-hmm.
and then she seems to have been like traumatized so much from this that she can only sort of make animal noises.
Mm-hmm. She's quacking, squawking is
Squawking.
probably, yeah. So we get an epilogue in the version I saw. We get this epilogue, which was the happier ending.
Yes,
they
we need it.
sort of
We can't
added.
end it. We can't end it with the chicken lady.
Mm-mm.
That's
Which it's interesting. I kind of agree with adding this ending because I do think, like I said earlier, if you're gonna do moral storytelling, you can do the grim fairy tale thing where it just ends in horrific damage.
It's the scary bedtime story. They're like, go to sleep or else this is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
But I think in moral storytelling, it's good to model good behavior. And so to me, it was less about we need a happy ending so people feel good coming out of the theater, so much as we need a balance to be like, this is what happens when you don't do the right thing.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you do the right thing. And the right thing happens at the end in terms of human behavior,
Redemption.
which is, it's redemption, and it's showing not just redemption for Hans, but showing Froso, Venus, and Frida come to see him in his mansion. He's clearly self-isolating. He tells his butler, no guests, but they force their way in. It's a bit of an intervention.
Yeah.
And Frida comes to tell him, Hans, I know you didn't want the violence to come to them the way it did, that you tried to stop them. I know that you just wanted her to stop poisoning you, and you cannot blame yourself for all of this. Don't cry. I love you. And she holds him. And I'm like, to me, it's, yes, Hans redemption, but I love Frida.
Yeah.
Fucking Frida.
Yeah.
It's an ultimate demonstration of what it means to forgive others.
Yeah.
By allowing them to forgive themselves, and vice versa. You forgive yourself so that others may forgive you. And Venus and Froso understand that. They smile and see what's happening and leave. I just think it's a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
The end.
The end.
Shall we rate this film?
Yes, let's.
If you're horror film averse, how approachable is this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all approachable, Hostel, or 10 being super approachable, something like Over the Garden Wall, lovely cartoon. How approachable is this? I would give Freaks 9, 8 out of 10 French bottles of wine. Yeah, like you said, like the ending sequences are disturbing. There's a lot of horror elements here, like the people approaching in rainy water, crawling
Yeah.
through the mud with knives in their teeth. The menace that's happening, and then the duck woman reveal is all super jarring. But I also think, similar to Wicker Man, the violence in this is feels more like a fairy tale, feels like a moral storytelling, and you're kind of on their side in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I think it's super approachable. Obviously, like content warnings for the kind of the shocking body horror of the duck woman thing. And obviously, this movie has some. Well, I think it's very, very good hearted, and I think it shows a lot of really great. It demonstrates a lot of really great behavior. There's obviously some very ableist exploitation happening in this
Yeah.
movie. Epithets that are used, ableist epithets, and general sexism that happens throughout old Hollywood. But yeah, let's say 8 out of 10. French bottles of wine as a horror film, not as an approachability, but just in the realm of horror. Cecil, how would you rate this movie?
This movie's pretty high up.
Hmm.
It's I think it has well earned its reputation, the cult reputation. It was banned in many countries. It's actually apparently still illegal to show this movie in quite a few states, in some
Wow.
blue laws that they were just never taken off the books, because the reaction to this film by, quote, polite society was so extreme, but for the wrong reasons of how dare you put these images in front of me. And like, literally there was a story of when this movie came out, a woman who had a miscarriage after
Oh yeah.
seeing the film, and she tried to sue the Hollywood studios because this movie scared the baby right out of her by showing these horrible freaks. So that aside,
Hmm.
as a film, it's actually pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Like, it's strangely progressive and very compassionate
Hmm.
to its subject matter.
Yeah.
Um, for the 1932, it's pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
like I said before, this is a movie that, it's really fun and shocking to see a film that is an old-timey movie that has a pretty modern sensibility of family, of individuality, of uniqueness, of autonomy. So for that reason, I don't know. And it's also, that ending is very intense.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 as well. 8 out of 10. I don't know. Um, spangly tights.
Let's figure out what movie we're going to watch next. You've got a scare die. I've got a style die. We'll roll those up, see what movies might match that pairing. So if you, on your scare die, Cecil, if you roll a 1, our scare is angels and or demons. 2, magic with a K. 3, killer games. If you roll a 4, zombie is our scare. 5, animals. 6, wild card, whatever scare we want. What you got?
That's a 3.
We're going to do killer games. All right. So if you, oh, sorry, let me say that again. So if I, start all that again. So I'll roll the style die. If I roll a 1, our killer games movie is Asian horror. If I roll a 2, it's something from the 1970s. If I roll a 3, it has to be based on a book. 4, a bottle movie, a single location film. 5, psychological horror, maybe something bloodless. And 6, opposite of that, something really gloopy gloppy type of horror for killer games. All right, what do we got here? I have got a 2. That is 1970s killer games.
Okay.
All right. All right, let's see. We've got a few that we wrote down, and then we'll check in with our letterboxed. If you want to go to get a letterboxed account, you can find Random Horror 9 on there. And then if you look under lists, that's where we keep all of the possible roll combinations. So of the 36 possible roles that we could have any given week, we'll keep those on there, and you can just add comments for movies that you think would be good for those pairings. So Cecil, what did we put on our list here?
Let's see, starting off with The Cat O' Nine Tails, 1971. This is a Dario Argento joint.
Hmm.
Reporter and a blind retired journalist try to solve a series of murders. The crimes are connected to experiments by a pharmaceutical company in secret research, and the two end up become targets of the killer. I'm guessing this is going to be classic black gloved killer POV.
Yep.
Dario Argento giallo fodder, which is
Yeah,
definitely cat and mouse, literally in the title, Cat O' Nine Tails.
totally. And I think I put this on there because I think one of the characters, the journalist character, is a like he's a puzzle head. He
Yeah.
loves his puzzles. So it's this very, very perfect procedural mystery horror. All right, what else we have on here?
1979, When a Stranger Calls with Carol Kane and
Yes.
Charles Durning and Colleen Dewhurst. Oh, I love Colleen Dewhurst. This is like a psychopathic killer terrorizes a babysitter, then returns 7 years later to menace her again. So
Hmm.
this is definitely of the let's torture the fuck out of this poor innocent lady
Yeah. It's
kind of
very
killer
yeah,
games.
the call is coming from inside the house sort of premise, and
Absolutely.
yeah, he makes her do horrible shit. What else do we have here?
Let's see. I added a few more on there.
Please.
One of them is Sisters, the Brian De Palma psychological thriller. This one is not necessarily a game as it is. You've got psychological horror. You've got a very confused relationship between these identical sisters that maybe it's more of the mind games aspect that I was thinking of this. And this is definitely like some of Brian De Palma's best work, like really scary, really confusing psychological shit.
Hmm.
Um, really good film. Let's see, The Legend of Hell House, classic. We're going to invite a bunch of people to this big old haunted house, and I believe Roddy McDowell is going to try to ghost solve everything.
Great.
So, again, like the game is, can you survive the house? This is a 1970s gore fest, The Last House on the Left, which
Hmm.
I believe was one of Wes Craven's first,
I
if
believe
not
that's
his
correct.
first film. But again, like rogue motorcycle gang tortures, rape this poor innocent person. It's kind of a retelling of the Virgin Suicide, the Virgin Spring,
Hmm.
and then I believe the family gets their revenge. So pretty, this one's bleak. Just warning you, if we pick this one is rough,
Yeah.
hard to watch. And then the last one that I put on there was Tourist Trap, which seems like a more campy, schlocky 1970s kind of fun romp in which I've never seen this one, but I believe it's this tourist trap that
Like wax
attracts,
museum sort of thing, or
yeah,
yeah.
like, and there's some sort of like mental manipulation of mannequins to kill people. So it's a death trap, you
Sure.
know,
Perfect.
1970s death trap.
Over on Letterboxd, we've got a few here. C Flesher 82 throws out Death Race 2000 or its
Oh, hell
sequel
yeah.
Death Sport.
Ooh.
Both of these sound really fun. I don't know these at all, but a
I
1975 film called Death Race 2000 sounds
I
very
think I've
promising.
seen this one like on cable when I was a kid. So it's one of those movies I don't even count as seeing because, they probably cut all the good shit out of it.
Yeah. It looks very like oh, it looks so ridiculous with these wild ass fucking cars. Like this
Yeah.
is yeah. Um okay, so we've got this. We've also got Death Games from 1977. Two women seduce and torment a businessman in his plush San Francisco home. This is from
Ruh-roh.
Weaponized Toaster. Weaponized Toaster also gives us this one, which I think is interesting as a killer games premise.
Yeah.
Theater of Blood, 1973.
One of my favorites.
An actor sets out to murder all of his critics, each with a different style of death taken from a Shakespeare play.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I love having a motif when you're creating something.
If I could, if somebody gave me like enough money and free reign, this is the film that I would remake.
Oh my God. Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
absolutely it.
Um, this was
Let's
also seconded by Katie on Letterboxd. King and Commoner gives us Duel, 1971.
Oh yeah,
Steven Spielberg, right?
boys in their cars.
A duel is about to begin between a man, a truck, and an open road. A simple battle of wits becomes a matter of life and death.
I love this. Like I've actually never seen this film,
Haven't either.
but I think it's like the simplicity. It's like what happens when rage and takes over, and it's like fight for your life
Uh-huh.
against a killing truck
Yeah.
or a person in a truck, presumably.
I'm assuming by truck it's meaning not just like a Ford F-150, but like a semi-tractor
Yeah,
trailer
yeah,
type of thing.
yeah.
Okay.
But not, but it's being driven by that we're not talking in the realms of Maximum Overdrive here.
Right, it's being driven by a human. I still think though it would be very easy to get away from a semi-tractor trailer.
Yes.
That's my theory. They have very little off-road capability.
Only if you know you're being hunted.
That's true. That's true. Squin gives us the abominable Dr. Phibes, 1971. Vincent Price plays some proto-Saw-like games with his victims.
Yeah. This is one that we might have to check to see if it's available, because this one fluctuates. It kind of goes in and out of availability. Classic. Like this, Theater of Blood are probably two of the best latter day Vincent Price, in which he is truly like just chewing the scenery, and you live for every moment of it.
The abominable Dr. Phibes is currently not streaming, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's one of those.
But that's a fantastic suggestion. And then Silent July also seconds 1971's Duel.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of good suggestions there. Duel and Theater of Blood both seconded by people on there. We've got some good ones.
So many.
I was worried about this category, but we actually have really good ones in here. Okay, so what do we got? We got Dario Argento, Cat of Nine Tails, procedural games. Legend of Hell House, classic game. Got to spend the night in a spooky house. When a Stranger Calls that cast sounds amazing. That's a pretty big classic film. I'm really intrigued by Theater of Blood and Duel.
I know.
Both. Neither of which I've seen. Both of which I feel high on a list. They both feel very gamey.
Yes. I will say this. I think I love either of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's what kind of film you want to watch. Do you want to watch something that is really gritty and sparse and brutal, i.e. Duel?
Yeah.
Or do you want to watch something that is like arch campy, silly in its premise, but chewing the scenery to the best of the ability? So both of them killer games, absolutely. Just what kind of night do you want to have?
I don't know. How are you feeling? I'm pretty open to anything.
I know.
At this point,
like, these sound amazing.
Yeah, these both sound really good. I think they're both rock solid horror classics, especially 1970s. And when a Stranger Calls, like even Last House on the Left, like get real fucking gritty and bleak.
Yeah. Very much.
But yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking? We could flip a coin between Duel and Theater of Blood, or we can just
I think that's I love both of those suggestions. Thank you for those on Letterboxd.
Unless you have another one of ours that you wanted to pick from.
I mean, there's a couple, like I think ours is more the like, if you squint, tourist trap. It's more of the like psychological game. But I think Duel and Theater of Blood and definitely have the like, no, an actual game is being played here.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's
randomize this shit.
So I'm gonna flip a little quarter. Heads, we will do Duel. Tails, we will do Theater of Blood. Let's see what we got here. Flip, catch, slap. Heads, we're gonna do Duel.
I think that's correct. I was going to say Duel feels to me very 1970s, high 1970s, and Theater of Blood almost is like, it's still a bit 1960s.
Yeah.
And it's, a little bit Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But I think Duel is the right move here.
I think so too. All right, well, let's do Duel. Let's do early Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. And if you have thoughts on Freaks, or other ideas that would have been good killer games, horror movies from the 1970s, let us know on Instagram at randomhorror9 or over on Patreon, where we have public discussion threads for each episode, and you do not have to be a paying member to participate in those things. So watch Duel 1971 with us this week and come on back next Tuesday for a new episode. Have a restful night with no mean girls trying to steal your German inheritance or nothing. Boo.